Okay, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. It's a FORA Reuse Authority regular meeting of the Board of Directors. It is Friday, August 8th at 2 o'clock. I would ask Mayor Rubio if you would do us the honor of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
My pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ralph. Okay, we'll be soon going into closed session. Before we go into the closed session, will involve conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, government code 54956.9 alpha, two cases. One, Keep Fort Ord Wild versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, case number M114961. The other, City of Marina versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, case number M11856. Prior to going into a closed session, does any member of the public wishing to address any of these items that we'll be discussing in closed session? Seeing nobody coming forward, public comment period is closed. We're adjourning in open session, reconvening in closed session next door. We'll be back as soon as we can. Thank you. There's Michael. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're reconvening in open session. John, if you would go ahead and make the action we did in closed session, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The board met in closed session, heard from counsel on the matters that are listed on the agenda: Keep Fort Ord Wild versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority and the City of Marina versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, and there is nothing to report out.
Thank you very much, John. Lena, if we'd have roll call, please.
City of Carmel by the Sea, Mayor Pro Tem Beach. Here. City of Delray Oaks, Chair Edelin.
Here.
City of Marina, Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell.
Here.
City of Marina, Councilmember Morton. Here. City of Monterey, Councilmember Selfridge.
Here.
Monterey County, Supervisor Potter. Monterey County, Supervisor Calcagno. Monterey County, Supervisor Parker. Here. City of Pacific Grove, Councilmember Lucius. Here. City of Salina, Mayor Gunter. City of Sand City, Mayor Pendergrass. Here. City of Seaside, Vice Mayor Rubio.
Here.
City of Seaside, Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby. Here. 20th Congressional District, Congressman Farr. 17th State Senate District, Senator Monning. 29th State Assembly District, Assemblymember Stone. University of California, Donna Blitzer. California State University, Eduardo Ochoa. Monterey Peninsula College, Walter Tribley. Monterey Peninsula Unified School District, Leslie Codian. Monterey Salinas Transit, Hunter Harvath. Transportation Agency of Monterey County, Debbie Hale. United States Army, Colonel Fellinger. Fort Ord BRAC Office, Bill Collins. Here. Marina Coast Water District, Director Moore. Chair Edelin, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Lena. Next, we have acknowledgments, announcements, correspondence. Michael?
Yes, I want to first thank all of the board members for inquiring on items that had some questions. We've been able to respond to those, and we'll take those into account as the items come up. I want to highlight for the board members that the next board meeting is going to be September 19th, and will be at California State University, Monterey Bay. That's going to immediately follow. All of you have responded, and we're having a special speaker event coordinated through the Post Reassessment Advisory Committee and others to have Richard Bernhardt to be here to discuss some of the lessons learned from the Baldwin Park Military Reuse Project in Florida. So we will have a special event that's going to be open to the public, of course, and we'll get items out for the public in the next week and a half or two. Also, for any of you who follow the legislative issues that are ongoing that affect FORA, we have made a copy of the legislative track that's provided by Arriaga, the JEA and Associates, John Arriaga. There's a number of items that the board took positions on, and their status is included in the legislative track.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Next item we have is the consent agenda. Any board member have any questions with regard to the consent agenda? Okay, any member of the public have any questions, comments with regard to the the minutes. Okay, back to the board. Entertain a motion. We're approving the July 11th, 2014 board meeting minutes. Mayor Rubio made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Supervisor Parker is the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we have a business item, the second vote with regard to approving the Preston Park fiscal year 2014-15 annual budget. Prior to actually, I will entertain discussion by the board and discussion by the public. Before that, I believe we have a short report. Robert?
This year, we're requesting a slight rent increase in accordance with the agreed-upon formula, 2.4% to address operating and capital reserves and still remain within that guidelines. 89% of the units will be still affordable, and we'll still be able to execute our major capital improvement program. If any of you have driven by the project and seen the new roofs, that'll be followed by doors and windows and lighting, and our next set of priorities will be some street repairs to address long-standing concerns by residents regarding parking.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion by board members? Yes, Councilmember Selfridge.
Yes, could you please explain the move-in policy when someone moves out and a new tenant moves into it? What happens with the money?
Okay. We have a representative from the management company here to address.
So if I get the question correctly, what you want to know is when a previous resident moves out, what the process is for them to move out and a new resident to move in, or you're talking specifically regarding rental rates?
Regarding, what was it?
Rental rates?
Yes, rental rates. How does that
Okay.
work?
So a resident lives in a home for a certain period of time. When they leave, they go ahead and give us a 30-day notice. Typically, we go ahead and try to pre-lease that home before they actually leave the home. The rental rate for the new incoming resident is determined based on the size of the home and based on where the home is located. So if the home, let's say, is a 2-bedroom townhome, a 2-bedroom, 1.5-bathroom townhome, we have 2 floor plans. We determine whether it's the larger or the smaller of the 2 floor plans and go ahead and assign a rental rate to it. Currently, the smaller of the 2 floor plans is leasing for $1,665. So let's take that as an example. A resident will move out of that home. A new resident will come to move into that home. And again, we're looking at the size of the home and where it's located. So let's say a rent of $1,665 is determined to be the base for that particular home. If that home has one neighbor as opposed to 2, then we actually do add an extra, I think it's $20, $25 onto the rental rate for it, and that would bring it up to a rental rate of $1,690. The new residents would move into that home at that rental rate. They would let us know whether they would like a month-to-month agreement or a 6-month agreement, and we go ahead and sign a lease with them and they move in. The difference between the previous resident's rental amount and the new rental amount for the incoming resident depends solely on the length of residence by the previous household. If they've lived there for 2 years, the difference may be $100 or $200. If they've lived there for 15 years, you're looking at more of a $400 or $500 rental difference.
So there always is a rent increase when someone moves out
Correct.
and a new tenant moves in?
Absolutely.
Okay. Beyond the increase that has been the regular increase that everyone gets?
Yes, new residents that move in at the current market rate, which is always higher than anybody in the community is currently paying.
Okay, and is that money, that extra money, put into a special fund, or is it just?
No, it goes into the operating account, but you do bring up a very good point, which is that if we have a resident that's lived in a home for, say, 15 years, there is a huge disparity between what the previous resident was paying and what the new resident is paying. a portion, or not necessarily a portion, but let's say there's a difference of $500 a month. So the new resident is paying $500 a month. In the period of time that it takes us to get the home ready, which means that we paint it, we carpet it, we go and we put in new appliances, we fix everything that's wrong in the home, it typically costs somewhere around $5,000-$6,000 for us to do that from a long-term resident to a new resident. That money, the $500 extra that we're receiving each month, pays for that $5,000 within a year's time. So the renovation that we're doing, the minor renovation that we're doing, has already paid for itself if that new resident stays in the home for a year. So there's no special fund that it goes into, but it does alleviate the draw on the capital funds.
Okay, so it's not earmarked in
No.
any way? Okay. And then my next question is, I understand there's a difference in 2 bedrooms about the size. Is it a square footage
Correct.
price
Yes.
difference?
Yes.
By square footage?
Yes.
So Group A, that are all the same size, pay the same square footage, and Group B is different because they're all the same size, but that's the same square footage also?
For new residents moving in
For new
only.
residents.
Yes.
Okay. And the older residents that have been in there for a while, it depends on when they moved in?
Correct. I think that we started making a distinction between the sizes 2 years ago.
How
So
many?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
So before that, every resident that moved in was paying the exact same rate, no matter which home they were moved into. Meaning whether it was the larger of the two or the smaller of the two, it didn't matter.
So it didn't go by square footage
Correct.
at that time? Okay, is there a difference in prices of square footage between a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom?
Absolutely.
And can you tell me what it is?
Well, the 2 bedrooms, like I'd mentioned, the 2-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom townhomes are leasing for somewhere between $1,665 at the low end and $1,750 at the high end. The 3 bedrooms are leasing for $1,985, and I think the highest rent is $2,010.
Can you tell me a square footage?
Oh, yes, I'm
price?
sorry. The 2 bedrooms, the smaller 2-bedroom is 1,278 square feet. The larger is 1,323. And the 3 bedrooms are all 1,578 square feet.
Okay, and is there a difference in the square footage price between the 2-bedroom and the 3-bedroom?
Oh, you mean per square foot?
Per square
Yes,
foot.
there
Thank
is.
you.
The 3 bedrooms are significantly lower price per square foot than the 2 bedrooms.
And why is that?
Well, it has a lot to do with the popularity of those homes. The 3 bedrooms they're great for families. The 2 bedrooms also as well. You know, it really doesn't matter who's moving into them, but the 2 bedrooms are extremely popular in Preston Park, and so we do. You know, the square footage price there is a little bit different than it is for the 3 bedrooms. It also, in any rental market, the larger the size home, typically the per square foot dollar amount deteriorates a little bit. In this particular case, I think we're talking 5 cents per square foot. It's not a huge amount.
Okay, but and this is removing the affordable.
Oh, absolutely.
from-
That doesn't
yeah,
come into
that's
play
a
at all.
different category
Yes.
on its own. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell has the next question.
Thank you very much. Corey, how many units are there presently rented? 352 or 354?
352. The 2 other homes that make up the 354 are our leasing office and our community center. We don't actually have them leased, but we do receive money from Abrams Park for the use of them.
How many, disregarding Section 8 and affordable units, how many units are there that are rented?
I'll have to do some quick math.
Well, I could help you if you want.
Okay.
I've got down Section 8 being 35 units and affordable being 50, so that's 85.
Yeah, I believe that's correct,
minus
yes.
the-
And I think as of today, there's 51 affordable, and there's supposed to be 51 affordable. But yes, that's correct.
Okay, as of dealing just with the 2 bedrooms, how many do you know how many of those are presently either at market rent rates or above when you add in the fact that the tenant is paying for their own water and waste and garbage?
So you're actually asking who's at the fair market rent?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, we do have that information. I'm sorry, I thought I had made a note to myself of how many there were, but I can find out. And I'm sorry, did your question say how much for the utilities?
I think when we have met before, I think you acknowledged it was 122.70.
When we were talking about Abrams Park, that's correct. The actual spreadsheet that I have for Preston Park goes off of the initial numbers that I had that gave an $85 utility amount.
Okay, well,
So I don't have it based on the 122.
that's fine. Well, using that, how many of the two bedrooms would you say are presently at the market rate or above
Okay.
without any further increase in rent?
Discounting homes that are on Section 8, they all are.
Correct. They all are either at or above.
Correct. The
Okay.
fair market rent, which is different than the market rent.
Okay, what about the three bedrooms? Do you have a number?
The
for
three
that?
bedrooms, there's 43.
43 out of
Correct.
how many?
43 out of 9, or out of 125.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions by board members? Yes. Councilmember
Thank you,
Lucius.
Chair. I just wanted to confirm, if these rental increases pass today, they go into effect October 1st?
Correct.
And how will the residents be notified?
We would notify them with a letter posted to their door and a letter sent to them by mail that gives them at least that 30-day window, and actually 35-day window, to let them know that their rent is going up as of October 1st.
Okay. So I see in the report today that there was no meeting held between Alliance and the residents, but
That's-
is there still a plan to have that meeting?
Yes and no. I've spoken with both of the parties that are involved with the Tenants Association. They let me know that they didn't necessarily have specific questions that needed to be addressed, but that they did want to make sure that everybody understood that they would still like to be able to have some kind of say. They didn't necessarily agree with our proposal to raise the rent for everybody that wasn't on the below market program by 2.4%, but outside of that, there wasn't anything specific that wasn't going to be addressed by other people.
So do you know if any families will be displaced as a result of the rent increase?
You know, there's no way for me to be able to tell. Anytime that you raise rents, you're taking the risk that somebody can't stay in the community. I think that based on the information that we've provided, the community itself went through a period where the rental rates were not raised for a number of years, and people were able to take advantage of that. I do know that there are some residents that have let us know that they would be hesitant to receive another rental increase, but it is not the majority of the community, and it is something that's necessary for the property.
Other questions by board members? Yes. Councilmember Morton.
As to those units that Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell was talking about that are already the two-bedroom units that are already paying more rent or equal to the current fair rental value, if you increase those rents by 2.4%, you're asking those tenants to pay higher than required rent for other like units in our community.
We're asking them to pay more money than other homes that have been determined to be at the fair market value for the county. We have always stood behind the notion that Preston Park is exceedingly different from other properties in Monterey County because it offers a significant amount of space more than other apartments. Typically, they're not apartments, they are townhomes. They give the resident the feel of a townhome over their own home. They have laundry rooms inside, they have garages, they have backyards, you have access, to a number of facilities. There's a lot of benefit to being in Preston Park, and we don't feel that limiting the property to the fair market rent, which is something that is determined by the housing authority, as opposed to the rental values that other properties are achieving, even in the city of Marina.
So the fair market rents kind of begs the question. So the fair market rents, in my understanding, would be what the market bears based on a survey. And what you're saying is the fair market rents are computed by the county.
Correct, yes.
Based on a standard, then my assumption would be based on the median income.
I don't even think that it's based on the median income.
What do you think it's based on?
I believe that it's based on the rental values that throughout the cities that make up the county of Monterey, the market rent the rental amount that all of the properties can achieve with limited amenities and limited additional offerings to the residents. In this particular case, as we're talking about space, the Preston Park homes at the base, a 2-bedroom, 1.5-bathroom townhome is 1,278 square feet. There's nowhere else in the city of Marina outside of Schoonover Park, which still only has homes that are 1,000 square feet, that offers that type of space. No other apartments in the community offer a garage without a rental value associated to it. No other apartments offer the townhome style that have an in-home laundry room. No other apartments are giving that to you, but Preston Park does, and that's again why we're assigning a higher rental value to them.
So isn't it in fact correct that there was a rent increase in the last quarter of 2013?
There was, and that increase was supposed to have gone into effect.
Can you just tell me the percentage?
It was a 2.4.
And wasn't it true that there was a rental increase in the first quarter of 2014?
There was.
And the same tenants then had 2 rental increases in simultaneous quarters. And what was the increase in the 2014?
1.7.
Okay. So this would be the 3rd rental increase within 1 year. Is that correct?
It would be the 3rd rental increase within a year and a couple of months. Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And I did have the pleasure, and I so appreciate that you make yourself available. And I did meet with you for about 4 hours not too long ago and reviewed all these rent rolls and reviewed the budget, and I thank you for your time. It was my understanding in walking away from that meeting that if you followed your option 2, which was no rent increase for the in-place occupants, that your budget would still balance to make all of the improvements that are scheduled.
Yes,
Is my understanding correct?
That is the understanding. However, I do want to, if I can, continue just say that based on the property assessment that we did do, we know that there are a number of major non-routine items that need to happen at this property. And it needs to happen over a 5-year period of time. So even if you don't approve a full rental increase at this point, at some time, there are going to be these significant items that need to be addressed.
And I'm not sure, I apologize that I was unable to be here at this last meeting, but one of the slides, slide 10, the Marina housing market, I'm not sure if that was a FORA slide or your slide.
It was our information.
It was your information. Referred to the addition of affordable housing developments that are also available, so when a tenant could no longer afford to live at Preston because the price increased, that they might move to Rock Rose was cited and Mazanita Place. My understanding is Rock Rose is limited to individuals that are of low income and have behavioral issues or some other qualifying characteristic that enables them to occupy the premises. Is that correct?
I believe it is correct. I don't think that our intention was to say that residents that couldn't live at Preston Park or couldn't afford to live there should go and live at these other communities. I think the point was just to mention that there are other affordable housing alternatives.
But if they're not alternative to the individuals living in Preston Park, they're not alternatives. So Rock Rose is not an alternative. Manzanita is in a different jurisdiction in that it's in the county. So what I was looking for is what other alternatives are available to Marina residents to retain a place in Marina that is at really what would be a fair rental value, which is negotiated by a renter and
Sure.
a landlord at the market,
And
what the
I-
market bears, not some artificial formula. That's what I'm looking for.
Sure, and there aren't any other new communities outside of University Villages, and I'm not sure if that's just a solely Section 8 community or if it offers below-market housing. At a certain point, and I haven't checked recently, the City of Marina has a link on its housing development website that lists all of the other communities in the City of Marina that offer affordable housing similar to Preston and Abrams Park.
Would you agree that Preston Park fulfills a tremendous function in the city of Marina and the county of Monterey in being affordable?
I believe that the property fulfills a lot of different functions in that aspect, but I also believe that the 51 homes that are set aside specifically for persons that are at a lower income level should be sufficient for this particular property. I believe that the 35 homes that are on Section 8 also is a very good portion of our community. And I'm not necessarily certain how many other persons within the city of Marina, need additional lower rent housing. But again, the median income for people that are not falling into those below market categories dictates that we can and should raise the rent for the property.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions by board members? Councilmember Beach?
I apologize if this is somewhere restated here, but one of the comments I made last time we were having this discussion was kind of about the fact that we're having the discussion and the idea that it seems to me these things might need a more global policy agreement so that we don't debate them on a quarterly basis. And that has to do for me with the numbers, whether there's a smoothing property that creates in people a rational expectation and ability to plan for what's ahead. And so I wondered if you had a figure somewhere that shows, and I've seen it before, but shows, or maybe you can just quickly throw it out there, what we've been through in terms of, so Gail just went over the last 3 quarters or 4 quarters of 2.4, 1.7, or 2.4, 2.4, 1.7, or whatever the order was.
2.4,
1.7, 2.4. If we go back further, I know there were quarters with 0.0, and then further than that, there might have been other, 7 point something. I seem to recall this, but that is more my concern. It seems to me that it's unfair to everybody, actually, to not know what's coming, and also for us to have to go through the strife of unexpected and unpleasant, debates about it. So remind us about just the way that curve looks and what we could do about it. It was a question I asked last time, but I don't think we fully got to it. I think we talked about having a policy review of the thing.
Yes. That was the intention, and it's in the report, that in October we plan to bring back a discussion of the various formulas for setting and determining affordability. But in direct response to your question and concern, annually HUD attempts to set a formula, one size fits all for the nation, and most of the public housing agencies attempt to sort of riff off of that, and they either adopt it wholly or they make some local modifications to reflect that. We are reflecting the local agreement that we would have no rent increase in excess of 3% no matter what, even though over a similar period of time, fully market rate rental housing has gone up as much as 9%. But I think the full discussion that we'll bring back will be an attempt to say if we want to re-examine that formula, and that formula is in the agreement that we have with the City of Marina and in our management contract, how we will go about determining that, and we can have a full examination presentation for you in October.
And just a quick word, if you remember what we've seen in terms of extremes. So 2.4, 1.7, 2.4 is 6.5 in about a year. Is that in line with, normal years where you make a yearly versus a quarterly, or how does that, stack up to other spikes or averages?
And because this is compounded, it's actually higher than that. Just to point that out.
Well, so I believe it's been for the last 4 or 5 years, as Robert was saying, there has been an agreement in place where the rent would not rise above 3% in any given period. Before that was instituted, I believe that there were 2 rental increases imposed in 2009 and possibly 2008. One that was either a directive $45 per home increase, or it was a 4.2% increase, and I don't know how it was applied. And then the secondary one that I think was a 3.2% increase. And after those 2 rent increases went into effect was when there was a call to try and cap the rental increase at 3.0 or less. Since that was instituted, there have been a number of years where rent either hadn't been increased, or it was increased 1.8%, 1.7%, and then 2.4%. So it's never reached that 3.0% since that was instituted. Even in the period of time that you're talking about where rent has been increased twice, one of those increases was delayed for 7 months from a previous period. So technically, yes, they do fall within the same calendar year, but they did not fall within the same fiscal year for the property. Were you going to say something?
You saw me push my button. You go ahead and finish.
Okay, so no, I just want to put it out there.
Yeah.
So yes, it can seem like you can add these numbers together and say that residents have received something that's beyond that 3.0%. But for the property, and the property is what is, the property calendar year or fiscal year is what we're going off of, that has not occurred.
So what I thought I heard you say just in this last round is use the word period, which I didn't realize occurs to me that could be different from per year. So per period, there's a 3% limit.
Well, and it's I believe it's per fiscal year. I'm not sure the wording on the actual contract. I believe that it just says that that the property is agreed, or that FORA has agreed with the City of Marina to not raise rents at the property more than 3.0%
Per fiscal year.
And I say period because I don't know what that word is. I don't know if there is a word. I don't know if it's a fiscal year or if it's a period or what that document says.
That seems important. And the annual HUD formula tends to be in the range of, for the nation, I know we've taken local.
I believe that they publish it in January.
But it tends to be around what range? Do you have any recollection in the last, 5 years?
No, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay. But, we're setting our own local policy, but... So does anyone know the answer to the 3%, what the period is?
HUD is the federal fiscal year.
Federal fiscal year, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions by board members?
I just want to indicate, I know there's this reference to that the rent increases prior to the 3 we were talking about may have occurred in 2008, and there was a span of time where there were not rent increases. But I think it's very important for everyone in this room to understand between 2007 and 2013, we were in a tremendous recession with double-digit unemployment, that the failure to pass on a rent increase to a population that struggled in our community would have been extraordinarily onerous. It isn't that those rent increases were deferred. They may not have been appropriate. So I don't like that we're recoloring history in saying we never did this, so now we get to do it 3 times in 1 year. And that's what's touted, and I'm arguing against that. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments by board members? Saying none, out to the public. Any comments, questions by members of the public?
Evangelist Levon Stone. I'm the Executive Director of the Fort Ord Environmental Justice Network, which looks out for the care of our local residents. We are here in Monterey County celebrating the war on poverty, which is supposed to be the 50-year celebration of civil rights, but we're celebrating the war on poverty. How can we celebrate something that we're still fighting? We are still in the midst of crises here in Monterey County for many of our local residents that have not been pushed out. We're not in the business of replacing communities. We should be in the business of building communities. This is the United States of America. The fact that Preston Park, and I'll say it again, was military housing for families who worked at the time on Fort Ord, and those people were put out of those units and they were locked up for years before people were supposed to be able to come back in. The staff that's managing the Preston Park, they are steadily getting increases in their pay. Management that live there don't have to pay. Professors for the CSUMB don't have to pay. Why is it that a process that have hurt and harmed so many people in the economic arena is still doing the same thing? That makes no sense. That makes no sense at all. People don't have any options of where to live. Under the guise of affordable housing, where is the affordable housing that's being built? We see all kind of units coming up at CSUMB. These are, what do you call it, hostels or whatever it is for people who don't live here. We see $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 houses being built in East Garrison. We see other housing that's said is for affordable, low-income people, but they can't get in. Somebody needs to stop this craziness. And then again, Proposition 65, fact sheet for tenants here. You can print it off on the website. This fact sheet was prepared by the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, which administers the Proposition 65 program. It provides information to tenants whose apartment managers and owners have posted or distributed
Your time is
Proposition
up, ma'am.
65 warnings. And these warnings are talking about chemicals and hazards and toxins that can affect your health with cancer, birth defects, and all of those things that are, it's not a joke. It's
Your
not
time
the
is up,
coffee
ma'am.
house.
Ma'am?
This is a fact. And people need to know that. And it should not be any, what do you call it? How are we going to raise rents on property and housing that is not up to the standards for the public? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next public speaker, please.
Denise Turley, President Abrams Tenants Association. I'm going to ask for something that I've asked for before and it's been denied, but anyway. You gave Corey Williams roughly 25 minutes for her presentation, and I think I'm probably limited, I don't know, to a couple of minutes. And in the fairness of the information that you need to hear, even the corrections I need to make in her presentation today, I ask for extra time.
I'm sorry, but your 3 minutes is all we can give you, please.
Okay. And then I need to say that if you're not willing to give me extra time, it appears, I'm not saying you are, but it appears that you are trying to cover something up by limiting our speaking time. So Preston and Abrams Parks Tenants Association could support a targeted rent increase, taking into account everything discussed here. However, there were a couple of errors that I must address in the presentation. There are, in fact, 3 two-bedroom style units. There is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit that I live in, so I know it exists, and the 2 she discussed. She pushed off your rent per square foot by saying it's only a nickel difference. Sorry, for me, in the smaller unit to even the other 2-bedroom units, it is 27 cents. It is not just a nickel. So, first error. Second error, I think if you look carefully at the documents that you will see that, let's see, there was some creative budgeting. I'm referring to attachment C. It's labeled attachment C by Alres. What FORA calls it, I don't know. But anyway, it says here that the estimated actuals, which would be the rents that you get from the new move-ins, are sometimes underreported by almost 200%. So there is money. You aren't out of money, and you are going to get more money. The other issue that Levon brought up that I will bring to a head quickly is carbon tetrachloride was found on the property and poisoned people. So, regardless of what was said at the last few meetings, there are issues on that property that are being dealt with or need to be dealt with. It's a substandard property, and I don't think that it's ethical that you keep raising the rent on a substandard property. Finally, I would like to say thank you to Alres for the motion sensor lights, because as you remember last year, I was out without street lights. I'm still without street lights. We're going into the 2nd year, and all I have is a solar lantern in my driveway. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next public speaker, please.
My name is Mimi Velasquez. I'm a volunteer admin at the FORA Environmental Justice Network. These meetings are always amazing to me. Of course, the first thing that always comes up is, before we undertook this base closure, or even once the base was closed, I always ask the same question. Was there ever a population study done? Do you guys even know how many low-income, unemployed, underemployed people actually live in Monterey County? And in regards to her reference regarding the fair market value, you cannot compare a property of the same size that might be in Monterey, Pacific Grove, Carmel, or Pebble Beach to a property that's in a more distressed area like Salinas, Carmel, Castroville, or Marina. And to take the average of just Monterey County, that it's not just illogical, it's just dumb. And for people to even accept that is just dumb. The second thing is in regards to the increase. One, there needs to be a real landlord-tenant association for people that live on this former base or whatever you want to call it. Growing up here, I know living in Preston Park, I used to live in the corner of Bandholtz, we fought carnivorous ants that actually ate human skin. They bit you, and they still do. We fought black mold, which maintenance came in and told us was discoloration, and it still is there. We fought open seals for our windows and doors that people still complain about. There is carpeting in some of the units that haven't been replaced for over 5 years. And for civilian housing that work for the federal government, I believe they go off of the military standard. That means that the carpet has to be replaced every 4 years. But there is carpet that is filthy and disgusting that has yet to be replaced. And when you complain to the management company, nothing happens. They supposedly do a review every year, and they come in and do an inspection and say, oh, well, what's going on in your apartment? What's happening here? And every year you tell them the same thing, and they don't fix it, but yet they're raising the rent on these people. The second thing, and this I experienced personally at 16 years old with a single mother growing up in Preston Park, when we were given a 3-week notice to move out. You can't do that. 35 days is not enough. I mean, it's not. It's ridiculous. You cannot expect a single parent, which you do have a lot of in Preston Park, that might not be on low income or whatever other program. But you cannot expect someone who's living paycheck to paycheck to be able to move somewhere and put down a deposit in 35 days. So you guys are not looking at how you are affecting the community. Different people are affected differently. Someone who's a single parent working for $32,000 a year, maybe bringing home anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000, is not going to be able to do the same thing as someone that might be working for $100,000 a year, bringing home anywhere from $75,000 to $85,000. It's not fair. That's pretty much the end of my comments.
Thank you, ma'am. Next public speaker, please. Any other member of the public wishing to address the board on this issue? Saying none, public comment period's closed. We've had board member comment. We've had public comment. We will now go into a roll call vote. This is the second vote on the motion to approve fiscal year 2014-15 Preston Park housing operating and capital budgets, including a 2.4% rent increase. Lena, let's have a roll call vote,
Chair?
please. Yes.
Is it feasible to make a substitute motion?
No, we're going to go through the second vote. We'll have a second vote on this. If the vote does not pass, then you can go ahead and put forth another motion if you'd like.
Thank you for the
Anytime. Lena?
Mayor Pro Tem Beach.
I'm going to say no. I'd like to see a second motion.
Supervisor Calcagno. Chair Edelin.
Aye.
Mayor Gunter.
Yes.
Councilmember Lucius. No. Councilmember Morton. No. Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby.
Yes.
Supervisor Parker.
No.
Mayor Pendergrass.
Yes.
Mayor Rubio.
Yes.
Councilmember Selfridge.
No.
Six to six. The motion fails.
Okay, the motion fails. We're open for another motion or more discussion.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I want to know. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what the other board members are trying to do and what you guys want done. We sit up here and we talk down this motion and we talked about the rate increase and we reduced it all the way down to square footage and how much people are paying square footage. And so I'm trying to find out what's really going on. And so let's start off with that. Why don't you guys set the ground floor what you want to happen?
Okay, we'll ask Councilmember Beach first.
Sure. I mean, I'll just tell you what's going through my mind. I think that there's enough controversy around this at the moment that I'd like to see a motion that, and it doesn't have to be today, but we do have on the books an October meeting that seems to me is going to get us quite a bit farther on this overall approach. I don't like the idea of continuing to inconvenience the management company if it ends up going that direction, but it seems to me that there's somewhere in here we're a little bit out of order. If we're going to have that sort of summit on the larger policy, that a lot of this stuff might get worked out better through that. So I would have been open to one of the other option in this report as a way to get there. So it's not so much that I oppose one way or the other. I just want to see this resolved in a better way. So that's what's going through my mind, Ian.
Okay, my only comment would be we've been working on this now for 4 months. I would think that the Tenants Association in a period of 4 months could get together and get with the management. It's not that far. You go into the management office and sit down. I know Robert and the staff has been trying to get with the Tenants Association over and over and over and over again. I guess the soonest that the Tenants Association said they can get together with management is what, end of this month, something like that? Sunday in a week and a half, and that's like 3.5 months after we've started this. So I don't think it's the management that's failing on the communication. I don't think it's a staff that's failing on the communication. I think that there's a lack of will to try and come up with a meeting of the minds, but that's just me. Other comments by members that voted yes? Councilmember.
Yes, as I said, I had the luxury of meeting with Corey and the Tenants Association and went over these same documents and understood that there was sufficient monies to meet the improvements. When where so much of the dialogue between the Tenants Association, my observation, I'm not speaking for them, my observation at that meeting is how these formulas, how the formula is defined and how it's applied. I was very happy to hear that this is coming up in the October meeting to have us look at the full examination of the affordability formula and how we are going to apply it to our properties as a board. And so for that reason, I had hoped to make a substitute motion to say, can we table this until after we had that education and really identified if there was a formula that's appropriate that both groups could accept as opposed to where we are in this conflict. Unfortunately, my substitute motion wasn't allowed at the time. So thank you. That's
Okay, just for information, I can call a special meeting next week or the week after and have the FORA staff work as a priority to come up with the formula you're talking about. That's no problem whatsoever. So if you want, if a motion wants to be made with regard to having a special meeting where this board can meet to work out the long-term formula for increasing rents or not, or whatever the rents will be in Preston Park, we can do that. That can be a priority of the staff. Well, if we go to October, wasting 2 more months of rent, then we have 2 votes after that, so that's November, December. Again, we have a responsibility, I think, to Preston Park needs funds. We need funds with regard to the land use jurisdictions, and if we have an issue that's been going on now for 4 months, we have a responsibility to get this done as quickly as possible. The staff is ready to work. I think the board is willing to get together to come up with a resolution on this thing. That's where I stand. If somebody wants to make a motion, if you want further discussion, Mayor Rubio.
Yeah, just from my perspective, listening to what's gone on over the last few months and where we were at the last meeting where we had enough approval to bring it to the second vote, because it was recognized that we need to have a reserve, we need to have maintenance, all these things need to be put in place so that this asset can be maintained as an asset. As we keep on chipping off the end of it, it seems to me that there's really no desire here to make sure that the asset remains whole. What we're worried about is raising the rent. The rent is going to get raised no matter where you go if the property is going to be maintained. I mean, that's just a matter of fact. I don't know how we can consciously sit here in our role as fiduciary responsible agents keep denying this necessary increase. No one likes their rent raised, and I don't think you'll ever find someone in Preston Park says, yeah, why don't you come raise my rent, or anywhere else. But the fact of the matter is the property needs a work, and you hear it from all the residents, we need this maintenance, we need this maintenance, we need this maintenance. And yes, there may be some money there right now to do some of that maintenance, but that strips out the reserve, that strips out the O&M. And how do you do the next round? Then you have to try to back up and try to capture it all again. Now you're raising the rent again. So if you're constantly playing catch up, you'll never catch up, and you'll always be behind on this maintenance. And it'll always be looked on as a substandard property. This pushing it to October sucks. I think having a special meeting over this after we've talked about this so many times, I think that's even worse.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell.
Yes, I think the board has to realize that it's not so much that the tenants have questions as much as Ms. Shirley pointed out. She wants to have what she considers to be equal time for the tenants to speak, to direct to the board what Alliance is saying, what the forest staff is saying relating to the budget that's been proposed. I'm sorry. Gosh, I have to start over again. Basically, it's not the Tenants Association that wanting to ask questions. What the situation is that the tenants want to have a right in front of this board to present their case in an equal amount of time that the staff and Alliance has. If you look at page 17 of this particular item, attachment F, you will notice that the adopted budget of this board approximated $5.8 million was going to be brought in on gross market potential. The next column over, the estimated actual is over $6 million. There's an actual difference of approximately $220,000 that has come in over what is considered to be, what was the adopted budget. Even without a rent increase, it is estimated by the Alliance people that for 14-15, there will be another increase of approximately $140,000. And the reason for that is on the comment that's made by Alliance is the community continues to increase due to the new move-ins. So it's not a case that we're not going to have enough money to do the capital improvements. The money is there to do the capital improvements. The fact of the matter is that you don't increase rent above the market rate or the value of the property to people just to bring in more money. You have to be able to justify. In response to Mr. Rubio's comment, it's not a case where the tenants are saying no increase in rent. Ms. Turley just stood up and she stated that as to certain units that are below market rate, the Tenants Association is considering that it would be almost appropriate to increase the rent as to those to bring them up to a certain level. But when you already have market rate existing and you want to increase it 2.4, and you're based on the documents that if you look at them and you look at the documents that are on the website, it's not justified. And I really appreciate the 5 other people who voted against this last motion. I look forward to another motion. Thank you.
Board members, any comments or a motion?
Before we, hopefully somebody make a motion, but let me just clarify something. I don't know the lady's name, Mrs. Turley, I think it is. I'm talking about the Corey. She didn't have 25 minutes of a presentation. She had 25 minutes of board questions.
Right.
So no one gets equal time with her.
Right.
We asked her for 25 minutes worth of questions. So if someone thinks the Tenant Association should have a presentation, then they need to ask the board to agendize that. You know, quit pointing fingers at ourselves and act like we're not knowing what we're doing. You know, they got 3 minutes worth of time. And my understanding from the questions I heard from board members is you guys have a good understanding of the concerns of the association. You know, good understanding. And you informed me of what's going on. And I didn't hear nobody talk about the second option that they said they agreed to. No one put that on the table. And so it's out there, and if there's money out there already for the, the market rate, then someone should put that forward. My thing is we need money to keep the property going, and if we have market rate now and there's money in there, then that's a question we should be asking ourselves.
As chair, I'm not allowed to make motions. That's just one of the rules of Robert rules. If I don't hear a motion, what I'm going to do is call. I have a question, sir. Well, if I don't hear a motion in a second, then
Chair.
what I will do is I will call a special meeting of this board, and that will be the one item on the agenda till we hash it out. And we'll bring our sleeping bags and our pillows, and we'll be in here till we come up with some sort of resolution. So I'm sorry. Mayor Gunter, you had a...
I have a comment. One thing I've noticed, this is the real reason that government doesn't run private business. And it's very obvious that most of the folks in here are looking at this as a government venture and not as a business venture. No one likes rent increases. And I would suggest to all of you that you need to come over and look at the rents in Salinas. I'm surprised more of my residents don't live in Preston Park, even with the rate increase, because our rents are higher over there in some of the worst areas that aren't as well maintained. But if we don't maintain the property and we don't have the rent increase, one thing about it, it'll be a land sale for somebody down the road because nobody will want to buy a ghetto. But I think we are responsible to maintain this facility, maintain these houses, and I think we need to think about that as we vote and go forward.
Other comments? Yes.
I think it's pointing my direction. I am happy to do whatever at whatever time to get this off the table. I agree with the chair that we have a responsibility to move this forward. I agree with Mr. Gunter that this is a business in many ways, and that's what's good about it. I think that a number of questions came up today that if I had satisfactory answers to, and I'll just tell you what they are in case we decide to go forward with a special meeting, and it's soon, so you know what to prepare. I'd like to hear more about market rate, the definition of market rate. I think we uncovered today that we're not quite sure how, how that catchment area works, whether it's including properties from Carmel or if it properly takes into account the size of the units. That seems to me both of those are very legitimate questions. Is it hitting the right properties? How does it comp out? I personally, I'm interested in real estate and I'm interested in how those comps work. I think we need a little bit more information on the 3% concept, the period involved, and I'd like to know more about how that relates to the way HUD, not that I worship HUD or anything, but just they've got some system. I'd like to see how our system compares with that. And the third thing I'd like to see is, because of what my comments earlier about, again, there's certain times when I feel like on these boards I am talking about things that I should not be talking about. I am not in the business of running a rental property, and I want this to be decided at a high level so that the folks who know how to do this sort of thing carry it out at the detailed level. I don't want to actually have the conversation again, ever, about whether the roof is this, and that's not my purview, I feel. So I would like to have a sort of meta analysis of the historical, this is what I referred to before, but a clean presentation of what we've seen done from a rental increase perspective over the history of the property, if that's possible, and what would be a proposal, maybe 3 proposals for an ideal curve. What would ideally the management propose? And then we'll see if the tenants feel like that's fair or that needs to be adjusted, et cetera, and maybe we make an executive decision about that. But to me, the high-level policy decision is what we need to make. If we want to, I don't remember how the October thing got scheduled in terms of why it fell in October. Just maybe when everyone's available. Yeah, if we want to take that discussion and move it forward, because that's what I'm asking for, I think we can get to the bottom of this. I really do. And I think as far as government running well, this is our responsibility to do this. And maybe it's just that the information has not been digested properly enough for those of us who are operating at the policy level. It's coming to us at the detail level, and so we can't put or I can't put the pieces together to understand the meta questions. So I would like help on that. And I think we can work it out, and I think we can do it quickly if that's the board's will. I don't know if that's a motion in there, or if someone wants me to make a motion on that. That's my proposal.
Well, I would just caution too that we're not going to make a substantive motion, but a procedural motion to schedule another. That would be appropriate.
You don't need it. I can just go ahead and
procedural?
schedule it. I can schedule a special meeting anytime I want to. Councilmember Selfridge, you had something to say, I believe.
I would like to add to that a little bit more detail about the move-in procedures and what happens to this money, again, that when someone moves out, the new one comes in, they have this range, but then also another range of a move-in fee. And I need a little more information about that also with what.
Okay, to save everybody some time, so if I don't hear of a motion right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to schedule, like I said, a special meeting. The FORA staff will contact every member of this board and ask for their specific concerns. It'll either be speak then or forever hold your peace. Okay, so we'll get those. They'll get those concerns. There'll be a briefing. Yeah, I see. It's the back of my head. They will go through. They will address all the concerns. They will come up with maybe a formula like we're using with regard to the developer's fees or something along that line. But okay, I'm sorry. Over on this side, yes, Councilmember Lucius.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
That we address the policy questions of rent increases, including a current rent increase as scheduled at the October meeting.
Second.
And for discussion purposes, I'll say that the reason I'm opposed to a special meeting is because I think there's an underlying assumption that somehow at a special meeting we'll work out our issues and approve a rent increase. And I think some of those issues that we're talking about need to be worked out are those policy issues. And if we're scheduled or planning on scheduling that in October, then I would say, what's the purpose of having a special meeting in the interim if those things still wouldn't be worked out? Thank you.
Yes, we have a motion on the floor,
And you
first
have
of
a
all.
second.
Okay, and there's a second, a discussion on the motion in a second. Who wants to start off with?
I want
Yes,
to, go ahead.
Mayor Pendergrass.
Trying to get your attention.
You're camouflaged over
I
there.
don't say much, but I think I agree with what you said there in regards to having a second meeting, just special meeting, just not going to do anything. I detect here, I think we're at an ultimate impasse. There are those in my detection, they don't want any rent increase no matter what. I don't know if that's political. I don't know what it is, but I'm not making accusation. So if that's the case, you're never going to get past that, policy or otherwise. So I think the reality check here is we are the top dog in regards to what you were saying. Going to a higher power, someone else, isn't going to do anything unless we all decide up here. There has to be a decision. I don't think the whatever the agreeable rent increase is, I don't think you just can't have nothing. You've got to do something. You are a property owner. And if you didn't raise your rent, you know darn well you're going to have a problem. So I guess the motion, it's fine, you can look for policy, but I personally believe it will get nowhere because there's a stagnant political situation up here. It's been going on for a long time. So I think you need to get the relevant parties, the yes and no's here, together, mainly the land use jurisdiction, and come head to head and let's find out what the truth is about this.
Other discussion on the motion? Yes, Councilmember Beach.
I really appreciate this conversation, and I want to clarify for you, Mayor Pendergrass, that I do not have anything against a rent increase. And in fact, this is a fair warning to everyone here, that I don't know if 2.4 is going to be the number. Maybe it's 2.5. I genuinely feel that this is a discussion that we need to not have at this level. And that's not a political thing. This is coming from my own mind. I haven't spoken to anyone else here about it. It has nothing to do with what actually the rent should be. I am in favor of exactly what we say. It's business, needs to be run. There's a risk to the tenants that I personally may vote for a higher rent than what is in here. Not that that's on the table, but it is absolutely has nothing to do with whether or not the rent should be raised. It has to do with the way that we make decisions as a body and my preferred way of being informed about it. So just to clarify for you, for me, it's not political. I have not had any conversation with anyone
I didn't mention
about it.
names. So
No. I'm just saying there is another rationale besides
You're
politics
guilty,
for doing this a different way. And I hope I've outlined it.
Other discussion on the motion?
I had-
Hold on. Anybody new have any discussion on the motion?
Oh, sorry.
No, it's just
I didn't
Robert.
mean to
That's
mouth
no. It's Robert's rules. I'm not trying to. You'll beat me afterwards anyhow. I'm sure. Yes, Councilmember Morton, please.
I just wanted to further follow up with Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell's comment about the tenant association being able to present at the meeting, if that would be appropriate, if we would extend that to them. Whether they do or not, that's up to them. I'm not speaking for them, I'm just asking, because that was a good point.
Okay. My only, I respect the motion maker and the second on this. I don't want to delay this any further. We've been working on this for 3 to 4 months, and if we go in October, that means we have the first vote and the second vote. It's not going to be until the end of this year or beginning of next year where something happens. And I think if we sat down in a room, we focused on one issue, we had all the questions answered by the staff or brought before, I think we can come up with a resolution. And we either decide to either raise rents, not raise rents, or do whatever we want to. But just delaying, I don't see the purpose of it personally. So I'll be voting against the motion. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby.
Just quickly, I think it's a good motion. I probably won't support it, but I like the concept of policy at the governance level. But we just spent an hour talking about the weeds. So if we're going to talk about policy and talk about the governance, then we need to come back up and we hired a consultant and we hired a property management team to get in the weeds. They come up here and they say, this is the fair market value. This is the properly leveled value. And I understand we were able to come out with some information about we might be above that. Okay, that's good information to know. But to dig back down in the weeds and say that's a reason to vote against or not set policy, then you get lost in there. And so I'm waiting for us to come back up to the policy level. And so when the board is ready, I'll meet you there. But right now, we're in, I know, if people want to go to October, and I think the chair was right about that, that leads us into the new year. Thank the chair.
Okay, thank you. And yes, Councilmember.
I just want to add for the October meeting 2 items that I think should be included in that discussion. And one is the 35-day notice. I don't feel that's sufficient for those who may be displaced as a result of a rent increase. And the second is what the actual objective is financially with a rent increase. From this report, it sounds like the objective is $28,000. And to me, that didn't warrant a rent increase. $28,000 was the difference between the move-in rents and the rent increase. It didn't, to me, that $28,000 didn't warrant a rent increase because it seems to me like this board spends $28,000 like nothing, like it just fell out of a tree. So if we're really serious about we have to absolutely raise rents because we absolutely need this money, then I think we need to figure out again with that study of what do the rents need to be each year with that financial objective of what are we actually trying to raise each year, and that must align with the operating budget. I currently, as Member O'Connell stated, that alignment doesn't exist. Thank you.
Any other discussion on, yes?
Thank you,
Supervisor
Mr. Chair.
Parker.
I appreciate the opportunity. I was not here at the last meeting, and I appreciate this discussion. I am in favor of the motion and waiting until October because I think in order to really have the kind of discussion that's being proposed at the policy level, to really understand the larger picture, we may need that time. To hurry up and hold a special meeting, I think we would rehash a similar conversation and not necessarily have the answers that some of the board members are asking for. When I read the materials, it seemed to me that the rates are at or above market. There is enough money in the budget to do the work that's proposed, if not more. And so I'm a little puzzled as to what the rush is. So I think if we discover in our broader policy level conversation that somehow this attempt to, in a more reactionary way, year after year, propose rent increases or not, if that hasn't been a method that's set the property and the people who live there on a good, sustainable path, then that's the sort of discussion we need to be having. And I think in order to have that level of discussion, we need the time until October. And as I read the documents, I don't see a budget shortfall. And I think actually the figure that was proposed as a shortfall in our staff report was $19,461, so not even $28,000. But if you look at the budgets, there's more money that is anticipated than was budgeted. So I just don't see the shortfall at all. So I think really stepping back and making sure we understand the whole picture is critical. And I would be concerned that we wouldn't have the adequate level of information and preparation if we tried to rush to a special meeting. But rather, I think it's better to go to what was proposed originally, which was a thorough review in October when we can take the time to do it. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Any other discussion on this motion? Yes, please.
Just in an effort to kind of fill out the knowledge, which I'm sure most of you all have, and in response to something that was said by the public, in East Campus housing, we all pay rent. And if you don't pay rent, you pay a mortgage. And the only new building that's going on the CSUMB campus is the new business school and an 800-student dorm. And aside from that, that's it.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Any other discussion? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem
I'm gonna
Oglesby.
break the impasse, because if we split, then we wasted all this time.
Okay.
So I'm gonna vote for the time, because when we bring it back, we're gonna have a real discussion, and then everybody that's on this little soapbox, we'll figure which way they fall off, and I mean that respectfully, because we do have to get back to the policy level, and I know everybody wants to be there, but if we go 6-6, then he won't be able to call a special meeting. He's a waste of time, and then we just need to move this forward. So I'm prepared to support the motion.
Any other discussion? Did you want to say something?
From a staff perspective, I just want to ask that it be crystal clear by all the board members what you're asking staff to present. I've listened very carefully to everything the members have said today, and they range from everything having to do with the difference between per square footage rents to the major policy questions of why we even follow fair market rent, which didn't even discuss today, which is the principal reason we keep at fair market rent. That all of that is a policy. If it's a policy question only, and that's where you want to go with, we want to have staff understand that so that we can present a policy question whenever that is, whether it's next week because the chair prefers that, or in October because the motion succeeds. But that's different than also presenting the finite distinctions of why we have to fix the black mold or why we have a difference in per square footage.
Okay, any final discussion? Seeing none, if the motion maker would please restate the motion just for the record, please.
One quick suggestion.
Oh, I'm sorry,
so
let's hold
sorry.
off on
I'm
the
sorry,
motion.
quick
They'll give you
suggestion
a chance to get a breath there. Yes.
Quick suggestion
Yes.
for our wonderful staff. I have to say that in working with the staff on a few subcommittees, I would just offer that the technique you have used on committees I've been on, which is to give us all a preview of what you think has worked so beautifully. So if you want, and frankly, I don't care if it's October or next week, but if the staff can establish over email, here's our presentation thus far, it is such a lovely, productive methodology, and I think we may have a better chance of hitting the ground running in October if we've all reviewed. I personally try to do my homework and respond when you guys send me stuff in advance. So it's just a suggestion.
Thank you. Yes.
Just clarification
Pendergrass.
on my rules. If
The motion is to agendize this issue for an October meeting and discuss both the current proposed rent increase as well as associated policy issues for future rent.
Okay, Mayor Pendergrass, you have one last comment, please.
clarification, we have the second vote thing, and does that apply here? If it's not unanimous, does the second vote apply to this?
There's always a second vote with FORA.
It doesn't apply for this?
It does apply.
I would deem this to be a procedural type motion. Substantive motions, I believe, do carry a second vote requirement. On something like a scheduling item, I'm going to deem it a procedural motion that
Okay.
needs one
Okay.
vote.
That's fine. So this will be the one vote. Okay, let's go ahead and have a roll call
Chair?
vote on this, please.
Chair, can I have a
Yes,
clarification from
Mayor
the
Gunter.
attorney? So in October, when we have this meeting, if we don't have a unanimous vote, we have
It
to
goes
take
to
it to
November.
November.
Yes.
Thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Beach,
Yes.
Supervisor Calcagno, Chair Edelin,
Nay.
Mayor Gunter, Councilmember Lucius, Councilmember Morton, Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby, Supervisor Parker, Mayor Pendergrass, Mayor Rubio,
No.
Councilmember Selfridge.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-4.
Okay, the motion does pass. It'll be brought back in October. We have some time to work on this. The staff is breathing a sigh of relief, I understand. And one minor item for clarification, the Marina Mayor Pro Tem Frank O'Connell wanted to be known that one of the major advantages of living in Preston Park is that you are living in Marina. He just wanted everybody to know that. So, okay, next on the agenda. Yeah, we were going to go into regional urban design guidelines. If I could have the board's forbearance on this, we have a special guest. Ms. Angeles Herrera is a Region 9 Superfund Assistant Director, so I'd like to move 8C before 8B. She's come a long way, and out of deference to our special guest, if we could go through the information item for 8C first. Michael, did you want to go ahead?
Yes, Angeles, if you could come to the podium. First, I'd like to remind the members of the board that over the course of the last 10 months, are we good? Says hold. All right. Over the course of the last 10 months, we have been working with our colleagues in the United States Army, our colleagues at the California Department of Toxic Substance Control, and most importantly, for this particular issue, our colleagues at the United States Environmental Protection Agency, in particular the Region 9 Office of the Environmental Protection Agency. This is an issue that has to do with how munitions and explosives are characterized at the former Fort Ord and how they work to get a warranty for underlying jurisdictions for future property. This is of particular note to Monterey, the county, City of Seaside, City of Marina, and the City of Delray Oaks as jurisdictions who will be getting properties in the future. As well, it relates to Monterey Peninsula College, California State University, Monterey Bay, and the University of California, because all of their properties are also affected or touched by munitions and explosives, and the circle of warranty is crucial. For at least the last 6 months, there's been an ongoing process that's undertaken called the dispute resolution process, and Angeles Herrera, who is the Assistant Director for the Superfund Division in Region 9, is here to talk about that outcome. And all of you should have a copy of the 2-page final outcome at your table.
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. Again, I'm Angeles Herrera, and I work with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Under my leadership, I have all the Superfund sites where the responsible party is the Department of Defense. I'm particularly excited to be here today because I'm here to report something that took a lot of work, and it's a successful story where the Army, the State of California, and EPA were able to be successful in reaching agreement and finding a solution successfully to a problem that I know is very important to all of you. So I think that I'm here to report good news. The dispute centered around, like Mike said, the dispute centered around whether munitions and explosives of concern, known as MEC, found in the around the Group 3 parcels. So this particular decision is based specifically on the parcels that are covered under Group 3. And the issue was whether they constitute hazardous substance. The reason why we thought it would be important for the Army to acknowledge that MEG constitute hazardous substance is because the transfer covenant only requires the Army to come back and do additional remediation if they find a hazardous substance. So this is the reason why EPA felt that it was necessary to dispute and make sure that that language was included in the record of decision for the properties in Group 3 parcels. I also want to acknowledge that the Army has been a good neighbor and has been taking care of all the MECs that have been found in the past. So this was just a way of making sure that we had a legal mechanism for them to continue doing what they have already been done. I think we wanted to make sure that the language that was included in the record of decision had some legal roles and responsibilities where the Army will have to come back in the future if MECs are found, and that regardless of the budget condition or the political climate, it will be their responsibilities to come back and take care of them. And I think that we were able to accomplish that. Like Mike said, I believe that all of you have the language that we were able to agree on. And we are, again, happy because we feel that FORA and the future landowners are protected with this language and will be able to move forward in making sure that the reuse of this property is done in a safely and efficiently manner. I want to take this opportunity to thank Michael and all the FORA staff for working with us cooperatively through the years, and especially I want to thank the members of the forum for your patience and understanding during this dispute process. With that, I would like to open it for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mrs. Herrera, for all of your work and your staff's work. It has been a long time, and it's been a hard-fought battle, but we've gotten there, so to speak. Thank you. Any questions by members of the board? Seeing none, out to the public. Any questions by members of the public? Please come forward.
I'm not sure I understand. I understood the part where if there is MEC found later, that the Army would have to come back. So I'm just wondering if this means that the Army has found everything and that the property is considered to be turned over to the public, or are we talking about certain areas of the base where these unexploded ordnance are being exploded, blown up, and continue to be found because we are receiving the documents? So I'm not really understanding exactly what is happening since we were not a part of that conversation before now.
Our executive officer will answer that. Any other questions before any other questions by the public? Okay, Michael.
Yeah, let me open by saying, as Angela said before, this is only today related to the Group 3 ROD and the properties related to that. It's our expectation that this language, now that we have agreement, is the kind of language that will continue through future records of decision in terms of identifying this RCRA hazardous waste. And Angeles may want to talk a little more detail about that.
I just want to clarify that this specific language, what the language says is that, so the Army has done already a removal. These parcels have already been transferred and are in the process of getting cleaned up and being figuring out their future reused. So this particular language says that if the MECs that were found in the past during the removal that the Army did, and that they may still be some left, if they're found, they are going to be treated and they are going to be considered hazardous substance, which means that the Army, under the transfer covenant, it's responsible for coming back and cleaning them up. And that's specifically, the record of decision is specifically for the Group 3 parcels.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions by the public? I saw none. How about back to the board? Any questions, comments by members of the board? Yes, Mayor Rubio.
Not a question, but I want to thank you for being here and for finding a resolution to this problem. I've been fortunate to be involved in this this reuse for, I don't know, close to at least 14 years. And this is a milestone for us in making sure that our properties are clean and that there's proper response for us. Thank you so much for making this happen.
Thank
and
you.
Michael.
Yes, and I see that Congressman Farr's representative has just joined us. With respect to this language, the members of this board, Dave Pendergrass in particular, and I think Lou Calcagno may recall, that about 14 years ago, we had a dispute like this that surfaced, and it wound up creating a significant amount of delay for the recovery in the former Fort Ord. The question about how MEC is characterized and whether the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Coordination and Liability Act applied at Fort Ord was tested in the courts, and as a consequence, all of the work that had been done through 1999 had to be redone by the United States Army. This is the same issue that caused the delay some years ago. Getting this additional clarification through this work from EPA and DTSC and the Army gives us language that gives us better definition and more assurance that this will apply in the future and that there's someone to come back and help. It's also important to note that this is work that on this property, this Group 3 ROD, that the Fort Ord Reuse Authority did on behalf of the Army. When Angeles says that the Army has completed this work, this is the contract that the Fort Ord Reuse Authority and Arcadis implemented this work on. And so when this ROD began last year, it was to finish this part of it and then move forward with these property transfers that'll be being made to underlying jurisdictions. So just so that all of you understand the context of what we're talking about here. So we do have better language, we have more definition. This is also crucially important for us as we move toward negotiating our pollution legal liability coverage. Understanding this language and having it written will allow us to proceed, and as you all know, our current coverage expires in December. So we needed this to happen now, and EPA, Army, DTSC moved to make sure this got done in time. So I thank you, Angeles, for being here, and I just wanted to clarify those last three items.
Thank you all.
Okay, thanks. That's it. Okay, next, last business item, the Regional Urban Design Guidelines, approved contract with Dover, Cole, and Partners. Michael, you'll introduce?
Yes, this will be a brief presentation by Josh Metz. We have been working with the Regional Urban Design Guidelines Task Force on this particular project, as you know, and also providing reports to the Administrative Committee. The board made some decisions recently, and this is bringing back the contract that will move us toward the Regional Urban Design Guidelines.
Thank you, Michael. Indeed, this is the list of steps that have been taken in the last, well, since '97, but more recently in the last year as far as advancing the Regional Urban Design Guideline project. We, through the task force, selected Dover Cole as the consultant to work with, and so we're bringing this contract here for your approval today. Oops, wrong direction. Okay, so this is the summary of the cost for the Dover Cole project is this amount, and we wanted to include this additional amount. There's $25,000 that would potentially be borne by FORA in terms of supporting this effort through the rental of space and other supporting needs for meetings primarily. So the expected cost here is around $470,000. Understanding that the FORA costs are estimated, all efforts will be made to minimize those expenses, and these costs are included in the approved budget for this year. So there's some key upcoming dates that we'd like everyone to be aware of. The project there'll be a startup meeting, in-person meeting. We'll, of course, get underway remotely with these consultants in short order, but there will be a project startup meeting with the task force and the staff September 22nd, and then a follow-up meeting by the entire consultant team during the week November 12th through the 19th, with the planned charrette process to take place in early January of next year. So we hope everyone could make note of these dates and make space to participate. And that's the presentation. We'll certainly take questions if you have them, but the recommendation is to approve the contract as it is before you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, and members of the board, if we could have more light, Frank, if you could help us by pushing the button right on the underneath the black, the top button on the black.
You're in the right spot.
To right, to the right,
Military right.
to your right. Nope, to your left now. To the members of the board, to the members of the board, last week you received a contract which essentially was the terms and conditions of this contract and the scope of services. In looking over that contract over the weekend, I noted a few improvements that I thought would enhance. Josh talked with the Dover Coal folks. They agreed to those adjustments. You received the new contract, so if there's an action, we're asking for you to approve the one that was sent to you 2 days ago.
Indeed.
And I would like to acknowledge and thank Councilmember Victoria, otherwise known as Charette Beach, for her ideas on charrettes and so forth. That's, if you're wondering where that came from, she's the one responsible. Okay, any board member questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really appreciate this scope of work, and just a request in general that when you send something out that has changes, if you could show the changes, because it's very tedious to go through and try to figure out line by line. But one of the things I noticed was that in the original document there were some choices of dates for, I forget what it was, the thing that on here was listed for
The
January.
charrette, yes.
The charrette. And one of the things that was spelled out was that we wanted to be able to have students, we wanted it during the academic school year. I know MPC has some sort of intersession in January, and I just want to make sure that CSUMB is in session in January, if that's the week that we're thinking about. I assume you talked to them before you landed on that particular week, but just wanted to.
Well, there's been a number of considerations in trying to set the dates. In the last iteration of the contract, there was an opportunity, a potential date in December, and then another one in February. And the December date did not work with the principals on the firm that were already committed, and the February date was too far out. And the other consideration, along with the involvement of the students, is we've tried to position the charrette, which it takes place over a 2-week period, so that there is a opportunity for the consultants to be here at a board meeting. So at the end of the first week is a board meeting. So that's kind of been our constraints, and I will check over here with Andre to confirm that the CSUMB calendar and the other academic folks, does that work with your calendar, or we can? January 5th through the 16th, I believe. I have it up here.
Josh, we have some leeway there within a couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, and if
so
need be,
we don't
can
need everybody here
adjust.
worrying about calendars. We can do that later on.
Right.
So you'll come up with a time that the majority of people can be there.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Based
these are
on
not
the
set in
guidance.
stone. How about that?
Okay. Other board member comments, questions? Yes.
Thank you,
Councilwoman
Josh,
Lucius.
and thank you for adding the 25,000. But I did want to ask, does the 25,000 also include Article 4 with the maps and aerial photographs and any other? And the reason I'm asking for the rest of the board is because one of my concerns about the contract was all of the things that FORA is required to provide that aren't accounted for in the 444,000. So that's why there was the additional 25,000 for these other meeting rooms and auditorium and refreshments and all that stuff. So does that include everything? Because what I would like to see in our ultimate approval today is a not to exceed amount of 470,000. Would that be reasonable?
Josh?
Yeah, I was looking at your the Article 4 here. Just what was the number that you had as your not to exceed amount? 470,000. You know, I don't see any reason why not. I mean, as far as I know, there's no intention to acquire new aerial photographs. Printing maps is kind of not a large expense. In fact, the $25,000 that we estimated was certainly an estimate based on some knowledge of market rates for meeting space and stuff like that. So my bet is that we could make it work for that number.
So the cap is $470,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions, comments by board members? Seeing none, out to the public. Well, Michael, you got something to say?
Well, our contract with Dover Coal is not for 470. The 25,000 is what you're asking for is a cap on the FORA expenditures for this to 470, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
That's good.
I will say that in the discussions at the task force level there, when we were going about defining the scope, the request for proposal that we put together, there was a range of total expense amounts that I believe was somewhere in this range. So I think that should be fine. Yeah.
Okay, out to the public. Any member of the public wishing to address the board on this item, please?
Hello again. My name is Mimi. I'm a volunteer at the FORA Environmental Justice Network. I wanted to reference page 419 of the agreement, item 1.4, Public Involvement Plan. It's something that I have seen before, and it references neighborhood associations, business associations, and community organizations, among others, in regards to contacting the public. Hasn't worked in the past. I'm not sure why we keep doing that. The Facebook page, I think, is a very good idea, but in regards to the community organizations bearing the brunt of contacting the public and the neighborhood organizations, a lot of them don't have the funding or resources to do so. So the fact that we keep depending on them to inform the public seems wrong. One of the other things also is that in regards to the occupancy on the base or former base, however you want to refer to it, they're not all being contacted when it comes to these type of decisions. And so when it comes to the community involvement, every occupied home on the base needs to be contacted, not just selected few or, a group here or everything minus the university housing. The university housing is within the base also. So those residents need to be contacted also, because I'm noticing that there is a difference between if you're a government employee or just a regular tenant or a college student living on the base, the information that you receive is not the same. So I just wanted to make sure that that was pointed out.
Thank you, ma'am. Other public comment?
Once again, I stand here, the Executive Director of the Fort Ord Environmental Justice Network. I don't know if everybody knows what environmental justice is, but it's the balancing of people with the care of the environment. And you don't seem to want to address the fact that this board was set up to care for its communities. And the idea that people from the community that you serve have to stand here over and over again, relate to you the situation out there. We have our pulse in our hand on our community, in our community. We work to bring these concerns forward to you to make your work easier. We say this over and over again, and still we have to do the same thing over and over again. It's just like it's never said. Nobody is addressing our concerns, getting back to us, giving us anything in writing. Nobody is even acknowledging the fact that we are here to exchange viable information from you, from the public to you. It makes no sense. And if we are doing this work and you're not acknowledging it, all over the country it's being acknowledged from organizations like ours, outreach, participation. public participation, the public's right to know. But here, we keep saying the same thing over and over again, and it's just like, we don't need the public. We're the public. But how come everything that's being done is only beneficial to certain people, businesses, and organizations? It needs to change.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other members of the public wishing to address the board on this item? Saying none, public comment period's closed. Come back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of the staff recommendation, and then I have a comment if there's a second.
Please. We have a motion by Supervisor Parker. Do I have a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell, and comment, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, I mean, I really enjoyed reading this scope of work, sort of a frightening admission to make, but one of the reasons is that and I hope I'm going to encourage county staff to be very involved with this process, because in addition to the urban design guidelines and the form-based codes, which is all a foreign language to me, that this group is going to be doing, they're going to be doing a multimodal transportation analysis, really figuring out where your most likely places are for walkable communities, how to do that. They're going to be doing economic analysis, how to attract that, and what are the right things to do from a planning perspective and design perspective to attract the greatest economic advantage, and then also doing the revenue analysis of your development possibilities. Really valuable work, and I hope that I think we can all learn a lot from this. It's just by participating, and then it also looks to me as though there may be opportunities to for different jurisdictions to either be able to look at how the analysis that they're doing on behalf of FORA and the related communities, how to make there be added benefit for existing communities, but also, and that could be just part of the work that's envisioned here, but then if, as we're participating, we see the opportunity to maybe ask them to do a little bit more in-depth study of one of the corridors in our existing jurisdiction to see how we could maximize things, I bet it would be possible to, contract with them for that limited work for a lot less money than if you had to do a whole full-on contract, since they're already here, sort of a piggybacking concept. Anyway, it just looks like there's some very interesting things that we can learn as jurisdictions who are part of FORA and just in the general area where these folks are going to be doing their work. So I hope we take advantage of that.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion on the motion? Saying none, I'll just call all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, why can't we have this amount of love and unanimity on all of the items on our agenda? I just don't understand that. Okay. Okay, next. Next is our public comment period. Any member of the public may address the board on any item not on the agenda. You've got 3 minutes. Any member of the public wishing to address the board?
Tom Mancini, a little editorial thing here on the FORA annual report. I think that somewhere in this third paragraph where we talk about the new facility, the DOD VA facility, championed by Congressman Farley, eventually replace the current outpatient veterans clinic on the former Fort Orden. It will be the first joint DOD VA clinic built from the ground up in the nation. I think you should have added something. It will be named for General Gawley. I think he should always be included in it, because if it wasn't for him back in 1994, 95, beating us up for medical facilities, I think next time you just kind of include him in there. That's all.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Any other members of the public? Okay.
Yes, hello again. My issue for public comment was in regards to the Prop 65 signs. For many years now, the residents have been asking for an exact list of the chemicals that the signs are referring to, whether it be in reference to the carbon tetrachloride plume or it be in reference to the landfill, and it's been avoided. When you ask the leasing office in reference to the sign what it's referring to, they actually direct you to FORA or the United States Army. And so I'm asking here today, as a resident, what exactly are the chemicals that the sign is referring to? Because I do know enough about the sign to know that the sign hanging in Starbucks is referring to, say, the roasting process of the coffee beans, or the sign hanging at McDonald's is in reference to, deep frying fries, which creates acrylamide, which is a carcinogen, or if it's in a barbecue restaurant, the smoke, touching the meat. So there's a difference between a sign like that hanging in a restaurant than in a housing area. And it would be nice to finally find out as a resident what those signs are referring to, if it's referring to a chemical that's going to affect my respiratory system, or if it's going to affect me in regards to cancer, or if it's going to affect maybe when I have a baby, if that baby's going to have birth defects. We'd have the right to know.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Any other members of the public wishing to address the board?
Levon Stone again. I would like to ask the board to address about 3 issues that came up in the reuse plan from when the base closed, and even when we've been working on this with the consultants that were hired, and we attended all of the workshops and had our input at the little workshops. I don't know right now where that is, where that information is. I ask you to address the fact that community members or impacted residents are being replaced. I would like for you to address that for me and my community, please. I would like for you to look at the funds and what affordable housing is supposed to be. That is in the reuse plan. Because of the impact this closure was having on the people living here and the people who were employed at this huge base. I'm asking you to look at what you think affordable housing is for these residents and what you think they're supposed to do when you raise the rents beyond the salaries that they are making to care for their families. That's number 2. I'm asking you why there has not been a health survey done concerning the burning, concerning the groundwater, concerning the lead in the soil and all of that. I'm asking you why, as the responsible party for what is going to happen and what has been happening in our communities, why these things have not been done, and they should be done, looking at the consultants and the people who have been hired supposedly to work with the residents, with the community, the impacted community. And I'm also asking you one more thing concerning environmental justice. Why that's such a hot button that nobody wants to address. And we've stood here over and over again to talk about it. And it's very important. And why isn't it being addressed here on this board and throughout our community? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please.
I'm Jane Haynes at the July 11 FORA meeting and again at the July 17 Seaside City Council meeting. I requested that Calvet be required to comply with base reuse plan programs for oak tree protection at the Veterans Cemetery. That did not happen. Both FORA and Seaside staffs recommended instead that Calvet comply with Seaside's existing tree ordinance. The 2012 reassessment report found that Seaside's existing tree ordinance is inconsistent with base reuse plan requirements. The ordinance doesn't even contain the word oak. It is an ordinance for protecting single trees in an urban landscape, and it designates Seaside's Architectural Review Board as the approving body for the plan. By contrast, FORA's 2010 Oak Woodland Report for the cemetery site, the Staub Report, is specific to Oak Woodland and recommends a forestry report for the cemetery site with registered foresters as the approving body. Requiring the cemetery to comply with reuse plan requirement programs would not have slowed down approval of the Veterans Cemetery, because all that needed to happen was for a mitigation measure to have been added stating that reuse plan requirements would have been implemented. The 2012 reassessment report identifies 139 reuse plan programs that have not been implemented. Seaside has 37, Marina has 38, and Monterey County has 63. A total of 139, including 4 that Seaside should have implemented to protect the oak woodland. So I wanted to let you, the FORA board, know this, because you are the stewards of those oak trees. You've been given, the state has given you the responsibility of making sure that they're protected, consistent with the base reuse plan. And if Calvet accepts the FORA staff and the Seaside staff's recommendation, that will not occur. So I wanted to let you, the board, know that. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other members of the public wishing to address the board on this item, on public comment? Seeing none, public comment period's closed. Mike, would you like to address some of the issues raised by public comment?
Yes, there were a number of items that were referred to in the comments, the most recent by Jane Haynes. Yes, we did suggest that the state comply with the ordinance that is in place. There are going to be some additional exchanges that come from the state. The state is responsible for that environmental document, not FORA, and so we'll see how they respond. With respect to the comments made by Ms. Stone, she asked for reports from what happened in the workshops and the reassessment. As this board knows, the reassessment report was adopted in late 2012. Throughout 2013 and now throughout 2014, this board has undertaken a number of those activities, including the assignments to the Administrative Committee, to the Post-Reassessment Advisory Committee, to the Regional Urban Design Guidelines Task Force, and reports back at this board in that regard. So those reports are regularly available. They're also available on the web on a regular basis. Our staff does provide updates in regard to the workshop, the indications from the workshops and the reassessment. There was a significant number of questions about data regarding displaced families and affordable housing. We are not the repository for that information, but that is provided by the County of Monterey. It's provided by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's provided by others with respect to the data that has to do with the number of affordable housing units in an area, what qualifies as affordable housing. We tend to follow those directions and will continue to do so. There were some questions that are yet to be determined by the policy discussion this board will have in October, so I'll not address those yet. There was also a question about health surveys. I know that the United States Army does do a significant amount of work with respect to posting wherever they are doing work. They regularly notify folks when they are doing burns. They do discuss whenever they are dealing with aquifer reports. 2 different indications were about postings and the clarification of those postings. We will discuss those with the United States Army to make sure if there's anything we can be done to improve that. The last question had to do with environmental justice, and the point had to do with why we don't do more about environmental justice. And Ms. Stone does know that we've done reports here on a regular basis. The presidential order we've discussed numerous times with regard to environmental justice. That's environmental justice with respect to cleanup activities and their impact on communities of color. It also has to do with the opportunities associated with the cleanup and other environmental issues and those opportunities. We have regularly reported on that to this board, most recently last year. on what had been done. The U.S. EPA regularly sends their environmental justice leadership in this direction. Senator Boxer has regularly monitored what happens in this area. Congressman Farr has done similarly, holding sessions in Oldemeyer Center and at the library in Marina on the issue of environmental justice over the course of a number of years. However, there has not been any significant reports in the last year or 18 months. Maybe it's time again to discuss the issue if that's the pleasure of the board.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, next is the Executive Officer's Report. Back to you, Michael.
I have one item, and that has to do with the Habitat Conservation Plan. If I know all the board members read with great notice that August 29th, 2014 is when all comments will be in regarding all of the technical comments so that we can publish the Habitat Conservation Plan, and I appreciate the board members' leadership in helping their staffs to follow through and make sure that all the comments are in by that date.
That's the Executive Officer's Report. Next, any items from members? Yes. Councilmember Beach.
I'd just like to always be a ray of sunshine if possible. I just want to compliment the staff again at making the subcommittee meetings that I am involved with so productive and interesting, and I just wanted the rest of the board to know that on the last one, which I cut my vacation short to attend, that's sort of a joke, I happened to be here for it, we got to have a report from the folks developing the East Garrison community. Wow. It was a wonderful chance to have a dialogue with them. We got to look at really some beautiful pictures and maps and the history walk and all sorts of things they have planned there. This, to me, is the essence of what FORA is about. It's the fun part. It's the creative part. It's what we need to have our eye on. We had a similar presentation earlier by another developer working here in the Dunes. And I understand that we may bring that discussion just because it is so fruitful to the board level. And I just wanted to tell as a preview that it was quite interesting and helpful. So.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. There's a lot of hours being spent by the board members on these various committees. The PRAC was meeting about every 2 weeks. We're down to about 3 weeks or so, but there's hours and hours and hours, and it's been very fruitful. Everybody's working together. So we'll recognize everybody near the end of the year that's serving on these committees. It is an awful lot of work. So any other items from members? Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Assembly Bill 2235 is headed to the Senate Appropriations Committee. It's a capital bond bill. If it makes it through that Appropriations Committee and is signed off by the governor, it provides a long-awaited funding for capital projects to the education system in the state, including higher ed. Monterey Peninsula College has $6 million from its bond measure that was passed, its local bond in 2002, that we're awaiting a match for, which is essential for our Phase 2 build-out of the Public Safety Training Center. So I just want you to make you aware of that. I think it impacts our friends in the CSUs and UC system as well. So anything we can do to get that through would be appreciated.
Thank you, sir. Any other items from members? Seeing none, ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned. Thank you very much for showing up. It was an interesting meeting, to say the least.